If you're using AI and thinking, this should be saving me time, why does it feel like another thing to manage? Today's episode is for you. Welcome to the Aligned on AI podcast, real business conversations, real AI outcomes. Today, I have a guest that touches on the human side of the aligned minds philosophy of artificial and human intelligence working together. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Jon Finn, based in London in the UK, founder of Tougher Minds and host of the Habit Mechanic podcast, and the author of books including Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution. Jon has 3 psychology-related degrees, including a PhD, and he and his colleagues have trained and coached over 10,000 people working with global businesses, high-growth startups, elite athletes, coaches and teams, leading educational institutes, families, the UK government, think tanks, as well as individuals. So Jon's work sits at the crossroads of performance psychology, behaviour change, and the AI era. And it's basically a polite way of saying, before you blame the tools, let's check whether your brain is running on 4% battery. In this chat, we'll cover the mindset shifts leaders need, how to separate busy work from real strategic work, and why the human side is the make or break factor in AI adoption. So, Jon, welcome. For the people who haven't come across your work, please give us a breakdown of your journey and explain to us why AI became your focus.
Hey, Carl. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, so my background's actually sports psychology. That's where I began my career. After my master's in sports psychology, I went to work for a technology company called Prozone, and they were working at the cutting edge of performance analysis in the Premier League and with people like Arsene Wenger, but also in rugby union with people like Sir Clive Woodward. And they were helping those teams and coaches really understand how to analyse in great detail what was going on in the 90 minutes or the 80 minutes, depending which sport you're playing, and just go to another level of performance examination so that we could look for patterns and eke out performance gains, which is more common parlance become known as the 1%ers. But that's where all that started. And that then just took me into working in professional football and rugby and cricket and golf. And I got really interested in why it was that some of the most talented 18, 19, 20-year-olds on the planet weren't necessarily even professionals anymore when they were 23, 24, 25. So I did my PhD looking at the transition between the academies and the first team. The third study of my PhD was a cricketer called Jonny Bairstow, who turned out to be one of the best cricketers ever, a batsman that England ever produced. We didn't know that at the time, but on paper then he was 18 and he was Wisden's best cricketer in the world for his age group. But there was no guarantee he would go on to be successful. And what I got really interested in is how brains are still underdeveloped, even in our early 20s. And as men's brains are not fully formed until we're about 25 years old, females' brains are about 1 year ahead. And trying to understand how that lack of processing power, especially to regulate emotions, makes it more difficult, essentially, to turn up to work every day and do what you need to do to keep learning and progressing and getting better. And then essentially I built my business Tougher Minds off the back of that research. And that led us to go work in education and in big business in the city of London. I did a write-up of that work, of about 20 years of my work with The Habit Mechanic, which was my first best-selling book. And then the summer after I'd written The Habit Mechanic, in the summer of 2023, I was in the London Science Museum in the gift shop, and I picked up a book about a guy who's now called the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize winner. And he's a London-born academic that all roads lead back to in terms of modern understanding of neural network AI. And the thing that really interested me is that this technology is designed to work like brains. Our brains are made up of about 100 billion neurobiological connections. So this technology is designed to mimic how brains work, which is why it's so powerful. And I thought, well, I know a lot about how brains work. This is quite interesting. And we just started to use the tools in our own business. And what we started to understand was this is actually just brain power. AI is really brain power. It's cheap brain power. Because as human beings who are trying to be at our best, the biggest limitation the biggest barrier to us being able to do that is our own brain power. We know what we'd like to do, but we often fall short of doing it, whether that's, walking 10,000 steps a day, eating 5 portions of fruit and vegetables, getting up and getting to your desk with a clear mind so you can really focus on what you need to focus on. We have intentions, but actually turning that into habit is a brain power gap. And what we started to learn to do was how to use AI to speed up behavior change. And that led to us writing the book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, which has been out for just about 1 year now. And we also created a new psychological discipline, which we call Human AI Performance Psychology. And I think that's going to be the cornerstone of understanding how to get humans and AI working together as elite teams, not just giving our people AI tools and hoping for the best, but thinking very strategically about what we need to do to optimize how humans and technology actually work together. And AI is more like a species, I would say, than a technology. It's evolving at such a rate, and it is human-like in how it thinks and how it behaves. And that, just to round off my explanation of my 25-year career in 5 minutes, when I was working in elite sport, I was part of a football team staff, backroom staff, and we won the League One title, English League One title, by spending 50% less on player wages than our competitors had, the teams that came second and third. And part of that was we were able to recruit these very talented 18, 19-year-olds from bigger teams. But I just got fascinated from that point on around how do you actually create a really high-performing team. So all paths for me have seem to have serendipitously led to this point in history where we've got a greater need than ever to understand our brains, a greater need than ever to get really good at building high-performing teams, not just human teams, but human AI teams. But the common variable is brain power. So that's a summary of where I'm.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That really explains it nicely, actually. That's quite a journey you've had there. And just you talking about male and female brains, are they really maturing in that sense at the year, 24, 25 years of age? It sort of strikes me a little bit. I like the Formula One, so I watched the Formula One Grand Prix at the weekend, and Kimi Antonelli won the Grand Prix this last weekend. He won the previous one, his first 2 Grand Prix, and he's 19 years of age. I just don't know how these people do it. I didn't have a clue what I was doing at 19 years of age, and we're already talking about, can this guy win a world championship at the age of 19? So it's staggering, really. But I'm going to make reference to some of the things you've talked about there, and the content in some of your webinars as well that I've enjoyed watching. In those, you described that this is a new era of human performance psychology. What was missing in traditional change management or psychology approaches prior to that?
Yeah, so we've only been able to look inside the human brain, and we call it human AI performance psychology. So the AI is the new bit. We've only been able to look inside the human brains for about 25 years now. Again, that coincided. Those first studies were being published when I was doing my master's, and the academics I was studying with were really interested in those papers. I know lots of other people at other different universities that were doing the same training as me. They weren't reading those papers. I was really lucky to be in, I would say, unique cohort, certainly in the UK, that was interested in this. And what those studies showed us, so this is data from functional MRI scanners, is that although lots of things that we understood about human brain, human behavior is confirmed when we start to understand how brains work, there's lots of things that are very surprising, like brains are fluid and they're dynamic and they're changing all the time via a process called neuroplasticity. We all got told at school that we were either good at something or we weren't. And, by the time you're 16, that's it, you're done. But our brain is changing till the day that we die. We started to understand how challenging, how automatic processes in our brain are. So, don't think of a white elephant. It's already in your brain. You don't have to think about it because the brain's number one operating rule is to conserve energy. Our brain is wired for threat detection. So all these things started to emerge that were not really commonly understood in psychology and behavior change. And you say, okay, well, surely psychology and behavior change has caught up. Well, it hasn't. It's still using models. The dominant models in change management, psychology are still pre-neuroscience models. They're models that were created before we could look inside brains. The human brain is the most complex thing in the known universe. So although we've been able to look inside it for about 25 years, we've still been figuring things out. So the big flaw with those pre-neuroscience models that you can think of as they're black box models, they don't consider how brains work. They don't consider the operating rules of the brain. The big flaw with them is they assume if you can get people to know and agree what they should be doing, they'll do it. Walk 10,000 steps a day, eat 5 portions of fruit and vegetables, use that AI tool more consistently because it'll make you more effective. Don't worry and beat yourself up. We all nod along and agree to these ideas and have the best intention of putting them into practice, but that's not how you change behavior. So the traditional way we've been doing things is very clear it doesn't work. So if you look at the National Health Service in the UK, the significant portion of its budget is spent on treating diseases that emerge because people don't walk 10,000 steps a day and they don't eat 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. That is where most of the NHS budget goes, treating diseases that emerge. Yet pretty much everyone in the UK knows and agrees it's a good idea to do those things. If you look at traditional change management program, over 70% fail. If you look at, and it's not because they're not trying to make them successful, look at mergers and acquisitions data. About 90% of merger and acquisitions fail to deliver what was expected they would deliver. So whenever we try to change human behavior, it mainly fails. And it mainly fails because the models we're using, they may sound good, they may sound intuitive. Someone might be able to draw a diagram on them and show you a reference or two, but they're just fundamentally not designed with a first principle understanding of how brains work. And it's a little bit like why the sports science revolution was so impactful on the physical development of athletes, because it started to use first principle insights, or sports teams started to use first principle insights about, well, how do bodies work? How do they adapt? What should athletes actually be eating? How do we optimize training? How do we optimize recovery? And that's why teams like the England Rugby Union team that won the World Cup in 2003, Arsene Wenger's Invincible teams, is why they were, for a good number of years, head and shoulders above their competitors, because they were doing something that was actually based on first principle science, whereas their competitors were still doing the old school running around the pitch training. Yeah, of course you can go out and have 10 pints, in the afternoon, no problem. Whatever it was, whatever the behaviours were. So, and I would say that, you didn't ask this question, but I'll put it in there, is that getting good at changing behaviour has just got significantly more important. I know right now that every business that is not optimally using AI is falling behind much further and faster than they actually understand. The technology is unbelievable. And you'll hear a story of, yeah, but it won't. And trust me, this is going to change the white collar work. It's going to completely change the way we do things.
The way it's evolving and the speed that it's evolving as well. We're using the Will Smith eating spaghetti sort of baseline comparison there, but it feels like yesterday that we were looking at it and laughing at it and thinking how ridiculous it was. And today, we're really struggling to tell the difference between reality and AI in that generative sort of use of it. So yeah, I mean, can you give us one example of a common AI adoption mistake? Isn't a technical problem, it's a human performance problem that you can pick out maybe for businesses?
Yeah, I think the most common mistake is what we need to do with our AI strategy is buy people an AI co-pilot. That's what we need to do. That, which is obviously a tactic, not a strategy. So the big mistake is people not thinking about this strategically. What is AI? It's not Word, it's not a computer, it's not a software package. It's an intelligent task execution technology that is the first time in history we have a technology, and that's why I think of it as a species, that can actually do cognitive tasks that up until now only humans have been able to do.
Yeah.
And so what you first of all have to understand is, what are the other things that are being executed, the tasks? What tasks are being executed in our business every day? What are they? And you have to start to categorize them. Which of those tasks are low cognitive effort tasks? Which of those tasks are higher cognitive effort tasks? And any low cognitive effort white collar task now can definitely be assisted by, if not completely automated by, AI. So instead of paying a human $20 an hour or £15 an hour to do the task, you could pay an AI probably 10 pence. So already you see the competitive advantage when you start to scale that. And then, so that would be my starting point.
Yeah, that resonates. Similar sort of story that we've had on other podcasts. It relates me, or reminds me at least, of I loved your ice cube versus ice sculpture idea that it makes the AI conversation instantly practical. Please again explain it, please. Ice cube tasks versus ice sculpture tasks in plain English, and why this matters for business.
Yeah, so this comes back to, again, brain function. Human beings are not going to be anywhere near as valuable doing low cognitive tasks as they used to be. So what does that mean? Well, we have to understand how brains work to understand what that means. So our brain is the most complex thing in the known universe, but it has an understandable set of operating rules at a high gist level. So we can think of the brain as literally being like a battery, and we call this this is our brain state model. So our brain, and it literally is like a battery in the sense of it runs on chemicals and electricity, and it's only got so much charge in every 24-hour period. So your brain is a limited capacity system, and you can think in every 24-hour period, you have the ability to operate in 3 core brain states. You have a recharge brain state where you're recharging. It could be sleep, could be or non-sleep recharge. You have a medium charge brain state where you're mainly running on autopilot, not really consciously thinking about what you're doing. So low cognitive value output. We call that often busy work in the world of work. And the third brain state is the high charge brain state. This is where we're really focused, we're really thinking, we're doing what I'd call strategically dense work. And we can layer on top of that 3 brain state model 2 different types of work that we typically do. So if you look at your role, it's broken down into tasks. Some of those tasks are quite simple, so low cognitive. Some of those tasks are quite complex, high cognitive effort. The low cognitive effort, simple tasks, we think of them as, it's like freezing ice cubes. So you go in, you're busy, you're getting through things, you're ticking things off, but it's not taking an awful lot of serious brain power. The more mentally complex tasks, your strategically dense work, we think of those tasks as building ice sculptures. So work that really takes your best brain power, that really takes you bringing everything you know to the table and then connecting it with new information and creating something new. And so the way that we are helping businesses understand this, we're helping businesses as human AI performance advisors, and then helping them to build what we call a habit mechanic AI edge culture that supports these, what we call brain state intelligence, is that what you need if you want to thrive in the AI era is more and more of your people to spend more and more of their time doing ice sculpture work and less time on ice cubes. You want to outsource the ice cube task to AI, but that's not happening. Most people are spending more and more time on ice cube work, and AI is contributing to that because it's been dumped on people. They're already overwhelmed. They don't have the brain capacity to even learn how to use the AI properly. So you just get a load of wasted effort about why I can't use this and why it's not good, or it ends up introducing more mistakes than you would have otherwise made. So that's why we have to come at this from a first principle perspective. That is, we have to move past the idea that people run your business. Brain power runs your business. And there is now a new source of brain power. That is neural network AI. And the neural network AI is going to pick up all the ice cube freezing work. I'd say in the next 12 to 24 months, great swathes of that are just going to be completely automated. You only need people in your business who can consistently build ice sculptures, and they can co-work with some AI systems to do that even faster. So a typical person, what does this actually mean? So a typical person and a typical team, we've got about 19 million hours of data points on this. Typical person and a typical team probably does about 1 hour of ice sculpture building work per day. And a lot of people don't do anywhere near that. But let's just say on average, they do 1 hour.
Yeah.
In what I'd call an elite human AI team, they're going to be doing 5, 6, 7 hours of ice sculpture building work. The only constant in our world now, I know we kind of heard this stuff. I mean, I was going around talking about the VUCA world in 2015, and I was kind of getting laughed at by some people in corporate settings saying you're just kind of scaremongering. Then we got COVID, then we got AI. People get now the VUCA world, and it's on steroids. The only constant is change. The change is coming at your business faster than you can even understand. I've been in the public domain now talking about AI for over 18 months and its impact on human performance and how it's going to disrupt the workplace. I have not seen one piece of data in that. Remember, I'm a trained researcher and I'm betting my own business on this. I've not seen one piece of data that has compelled me that the technology is not everything and in fact much more than people are saying it is. Most senior leaders I'm hearing do not understand this technology. They keep trying out the same lines. There'll be more plumbers than lawyers. Well, if you just understand simple market dynamics, there can only be so many plumbers. And the more there are, the more commoditized there will be. I don't know, they say plumbers will get paid more than solicitors, but they're just throwing these lines out. They don't understand the tech. Someone's just said, say this. And I'm seeing very senior people who 6 months ago were saying, no, this AI is overhyped. Now they're saying the government needs to intervene. They need to. We've never seen anything like this before so quickly. Every target that was set last year in around January at the World Economic Forum, Davos, has already been smashed. They were talking about in the next 5 years, there'll be about $1 trillion worth of investment in this tech. They've already smashed that ceiling within 12 months.
Wow.
Claude is worth $380 billion.
Staggering.
Billion dollars. It's a 2-year-old company, I think, maybe 3, maybe 4. But this is like it's like we've never seen this before. So I'm trying to gently encourage people need to start taking this really seriously, because if you do, there's a massive competitive advantage to be had. You can use a company's best tool for $20 a month, that company's valuation is $380 billion, and you can use their system for $20 a month.
Yeah. I mean, the other advantage that been discussing on other podcasts around this is that, I've seen this myself, firsthand. People don't want to be doing the mundane stuff. They don't want to be bogged down in administration either. They want to be doing the interesting stuff. The types of work that they went to college, went to university for, that was what really interested them, and that if they can do more of this work, it's going to bring better job satisfaction as well. Hopefully they can do it much more quickly as well. Maybe they can reduce their hours, they can get that better work-life balance as well. There are issues, of course, there's considerations around, well, how are the new people coming through, early career people, how are they going to get used to the ways of working around, the business, and because all the stuff that the early career people were doing is now going to get done by AI. There's other podcasts that we've done which talk around that. But of course, the brain can't necessarily operate at full power every day, all the time, every day. It just it's just impossible. But people do get trapped in the medium charge, don't they? What happens there? What does this do to decision quality, for example? It's something you talked about in your webinar.
Well, let's zoom out, Carl, because you said people can't operate in full power, brain power all day. So let's quantify that. There's 24 hours in a day. So no one's saying that humans can operate in full brain power for 24 hours a day. That's why we go back to the first principles, the brain state intelligence model. There are 3 brain states. And when we're really nailing, we can maybe do 5 hours of high charge, high impact thinking consistently, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
With AI, when you're co-working with AI and you're able to outsource some of your medium charge ice cube freezing tasks, and you're able to go faster on your ice sculpture building tasks because you're outsourcing brain power when you're working with generative AIs, you can maybe do 6-7 hours of high impact work. So that's the standard. But let's also, to go back to people want to do this stuff, let's look at professional sport. There's lots of Premier League players now that have dreamed all of professional football in the UK, top tier English, top tier world football. The Premier League is the desired place to play. I guarantee you now there's maybe 20-30% of players in that league who don't like turning up for work every day, who are not that interested. So there's an idea that, well, if I could just get that time, then I would do all that I'd do all that great work. Well, we know that isn't true because time is not the constraint, it's brain states are the constraint. That's what, again, we have to go back to first principles. Brain states are the constraint. And to jump forward to your question then, our brain is designed to conserve energy. That is its number one operating rule. Thinking burns energy. Our brain does not like thinking consciously unless you get an immediate reward. So building an ice sculpture, by definition, doesn't give you an immediate reward. It's the delayed gratification process. So what we've been conditioned to, and I think it's accelerated since the pandemic with kind of lockdown created almost full digitalization of businesses having to work remotely. We've become addicted to busyness. We've become addicted to variable reward systems, which is just on, tick a box, on, did that. Well, AI can do that about 1,000 times faster than a human being can, and at about 1% of the cost. So what we've been conditioned, and we're running on habits, and the more we practice that, the better we get at it. Everyone can remember the time maybe at school revising, well, probably, hopefully everyone listening to this podcast can, school revising or university or college exams, where you carve out your time for revision. And what do you end up doing? Maybe cleaning your room or something, because you've got I've got the time now. But it's to say, so time is not the main effect variable here, but it's brain states. So what we have to do is design our businesses around brain states and around helping people to optimize their brain states. And part of that is understanding that humans are designed to save energy and procrastinate. So we've got to use our behavior change levers and what we call the 9 action factors to make it easier for people to actually build the habits that allow them to get into high charge brain states more consistently, build ice sculptures more consistently.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing, is that actually building systems and workflows that allow you to semi or fully automate your ice cube freezing tasks is also an ice sculpture task. It takes a lot of brain power to get that stuff set up, right? And again, so that's why most people are not doing it, because it's just, I'll put it on the later base kind of thing. If you look at someone like Salesforce have laid off 4,000 people in their 9,000 people customer support team. And they now say that 50% of tasks that are executed in their customer support teams is done by AI, by their what we call agent. They call them the agent force. So this is what I mean. So how can any other business compete with Salesforce if they're not doing the same thing? Because Salesforce is so much cheaper to deliver the same, if not a better service. They've already been doing that for about 18 months.
Yeah, it's staggering, isn't it? So yeah, it's moving so quickly and it can be pretty scary, but I mean, you can understand why AI might feel like a heavy backpack instead of a shortcut. It feels like there's a big learning road ahead for these businesses. But yeah, it's obviously super important for them to start as early as possible, I think. And in your webinar, you described 3 team types, which was interesting. You had the legacy teams, you had the AI-enabled teams, and the elite human AI teams. So describe them. What separates them in practice?
Yeah, and I think a good way into this is, I hear a lot of people saying, yeah, but I'm an expert, so I'm defendable, aren't I? And I say, no, you're not defendable if you're an expert. And I think we need to start thinking about expertise in 2 different ways. One is a static expert. I know all this stuff. I learned it over a long period of time. Got a question about that, come and speak to me. Want a consultant on that, come and speak to me. That's a static expert. AI can learn most of what you've learned, whether it's over 10, 20, 30, 40 years. It can learn it in hours, well, days, if not hours. So I wrote a 107,000 page book and AI learns it in a few minutes. And that took me about 20 years to write. So expertise does not defend you. You need to be an active expert. You need to be working on the cutting edge. Unfortunately, it's that double-edged sword, isn't it? People like to engage in interesting things, but also they don't like being chased, in the sense of, if I don't keep up with this, I'm under pressure to get it right because I'm going to fall behind. But that's how the world is forming. It's becoming like elite sport. In the world of elite sport I worked in, if you don't perform, they sack you. That's it. If you look at certain sectors in the UK in particular, no one gets sacked. And just don't. We see it every day in newspaper stories. Woeful performance. No one's getting sacked. It's fine. They'll be okay. We'll keep paying you. The culture is going to change dramatically, because if you cannot do what AI can't do, you are vulnerable. So in a legacy team, you've got some static experts. They know a lot of stuff. Great. They're doing things the traditional way. Most of what they're really doing is freezing ice cubes. They're not creating anything new. They're not innovating anything new. And they're going at a very slow pace. The metaphor that we're using is you're going up a mountain, and the conditions of the mountain are getting more and more difficult. So if you just look at big sets of data like mental health data in the UK, we've got over 20,000 people a month being signed off on the sick with anxiety and depression. That's a national thermometer for how well people are not doing. That's your legacy team. Your what we call your high-performing team, your AI-enabled team. So this is a team that's got AI tools. And if you're thinking of the legacy team is struggling to get up the mountain because the conditions are stormy. The AI-enabled team, they've got their skis or their snow boots and their sticks and some equipment. And some people will fly with that because that's their nature, that's where they are in their career, they see it as an opportunity. But most people have been slowed down. So big sets of data show that most people who have been given AI tools are saying it's slowing them down, it's overwhelming them, it isn't helping them to go faster. But, they're able to automate some things, they're able to spend a bit more time in high charge brain states. And also, the high performing AI enabled team is going to be smaller than the legacy team. So we're seeing already, as an average, businesses that are going for this, reducing their staff by about 40%. So there was a big announcement by Jack Dorsey's company, Block. Jack Dorsey's famous because he was a co-founder of Twitter. And he has another business called Block, which is a multi-billion-dollar business. They have apps like Cash App and Tidal, and people, will know these, they use them. They announced about a month ago they're laying off 40% of their staff, and they're basically able to do the tasks those people used to do with AI. So you've got a high-performing AI-enabled team that's smaller headcount, so it's cheaper, and it's able to do more high-charge, more high-impact work. But they're not brain state intelligent. No one's saying, look, the key thing here is to get the most out of these tools, you've got to understand your brain states. The third team is what we call elite human AI teams, and this is what we're helping businesses to develop. So elite human AI teams do understand brain states, and they're brain state aware before they buy the AI tools, and they're brain state aware around the habits they need to get the most out of the AI tools. And for them, a combination of brain state intelligence and the AI technology is like a snowmobile that moves you up the mountain further and faster. And we see those teams are able to do about twice as much on average high charge, high sculpture building work per person per day than the AI enabled teams. So they're able to do much more strategic dense work that allows you to innovate, create the better solution, keep bringing in the latest AI so you go further, faster. And that's the future, is that we're going to have smaller teams, so less humans in a team, but they're going to be expected to do a lot more, and they're going to have to learn how to get optimize how they work with AI technologies. So to do that, it has to be a culture-based approach. So you've got to get a C-suite to understand this. You've got to help your teams to build the habits of elite human AI teams, and you've got to help your individuals to build those individual habits so they can become habit mechanics. So we work with businesses as human AI performance advisors, and we train others how to do that. We train people to become human AI, what we call team power coaches, so they can actually support human AI teams using our 5-step human AI team power model. And then we train coaches to work with individuals to help them to become habit mechanics. And we have a habit mechanic AI coming out soon, which is a personal performance system that learns about you, that you use every day. It learns about you, it coaches you, and it's bringing all our training to bear, but in a really high-powered tech platform. And it's like your own. And again, going back to that sports analogy now, if you go to the Premier League footballers now, it's not just the clubs that have the fitness coach and the nutritionist and the masseurs, etc. The players have them. The players have their own chefs, have their own fitness advisors. And again, this is where we're going with at work. So what we're offering with Habit Mechanic AI is like hiring your own personal performance department, but it's delivered through neural network AI.
Sounds brilliant. Sounds really good. I just want to go back to, so you talked about or mentioned static experts, and I know you've talked about adaptive experts as well. So what, in the AI sort of context, what makes an expert adaptive?
They're learning, they're integrating these flows, they're trying to do things. So, I mean, I've been really almost fall off your chair disappointed by a lot of people who outwardly look like they're progressive and they're forward thinking. Like I heard, I won't say where it was, but a professor in technology just say, well, this is not so long ago, say, well, these tools are just like fancy search engines. Like, what? What are you talking about? You're responsible for developing the next generation of engineers. So you're not giving any serious consideration to this technology. You have to do a project with it. You have to sit down and work with it. And my second book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, this is where people, again, it's just our brain. Who wants to take shortcuts. Our brain kind of, its immediate response is, I either does everything for you or it doesn't do anything. Well, that's not how it works. It's
Yeah.
a partner.
Yeah.
It's like you work with a consultant, or that's the best way to explain it. It's an evergreen expert consultant, the generative tools. When I wrote The Habit Mechanic, I used my brain power, but I had an editor and I had colleagues I'd bounce ideas off, etc. Really, from Train Your Brain for the Revolution, I mainly worked with AI, and he didn't write the book for me, but I bounced ideas off it. What do you think of
Yeah.
this? What do you think of that? I'm
Yeah.
looking for a different way of expressing that, etc. And we were able to write that book significantly faster and cheaper. So this idea that it's just a fancy search engine is just nonsense. People are not, they're using, there's a very sophisticated term in behavior change that my professor taught me. And the term basically, when people don't, they don't want to go there, they don't want to do the new thing the business wants them to do. Might be use AI, might be adopt emails, 20 years ago, whatever it was. And they'll start to argue black is white, basically. And very, very fancy psychological language, but it's called that people go mad dog. That's what they say. I'm joking, right? So, but that's what they say.
Yeah.
They just go mad dog. They go, yeah, but it's a fancy search and he'll never be able to. It's just nonsense that you haven't used it. The people who tell me they're the biggest experts on AI, when you speak to them, never actually used it, in any kind of meaningful way. So that's what I mean by a static expert. They're just trying to defect, and those tactics have worked before. They've been able to get away with it before, but we've never encountered this type of technology in human history. It can do what we can do, and it makes mistakes. Humans make far more mistakes than AI does.
This
And
is it.
it was a panel discussion in London just before Christmas, and there was a very senior medical guy on the panel. He's an American chap. He's pretty famous, and he's done a lot of work with the NHS in terms of high level change. And one of the other panelists, he was quite skeptical about this technology. So you're saying that you would let an AI treat a patient? He's like, yeah, I would trust AI to treat a patient over a doctor. So why? He said, well, I follow doctors round wards at least once a week, and the amount of mistakes they make is frightening, even senior people. He said, AI makes mistakes as well, but I know we can reprogram the AI to stop making those mistakes. It doesn't make it more than once. We program it out of it. We can't reprogram a doctor so easily. Someone who's really at the cutting edge of implementing these things, without, I think the thing to maybe one thing that captures this well. So expertise is just about learning something. That's all that it is. You've invested time and attention to something and you've learned. We're seeing AI technologies learn at a rate that we've never seen before, but also they disrupt traditional learning and how it has to happen. I was listening to a documentary the other day. It was about the Canadian military being given an additional 9 billion Canadian dollars every year to get their defences up to speed. And this documentary maker, I think he used to be in the Canadian Army, was just going around the different services and saying, what are you doing? And the army was recruiting loads more people, and we're spending this much on boots and this much on beds. And yeah, in about 5 years, these guys will be awesome soldiers. Well, in the UK, they're making drones for £3,000 that have been tried and tested on the battlefield in Ukraine that can probably do the job of 20 skilled soldiers.
Wow. Yeah.
Right now, I've seen this story for a while, but it's been deployed now. So the UK has the ability, has I think a unique ability in the world, to mine. They have drone mine detecting, the drones that go under the water that can detect mines and blow them up. Now they're going to be deployed, I think, as part of the oil crisis that we're currently seeing. But if you imagine what it used to look like, you used to have to buy a big ship with special technology that would probably take 3 or 4 years to build, and then train expert scuba divers to go in and dismantle these mines. It might take you 10 years to train up to do that. Now you can build an AI drone for $3,000, probably in a few hours, that can do exactly the same job. So we've got to just think about what happens in our businesses. There are now different ways to getting that same thing done that
Do you think
possibly weren't even available 2 months ago. That's how quickly this is changing.
So I was going to ask you, do you think humans, in a way, are actually holding AI back? Because we're making the decisions at the end of the day about how it's getting used. A lot of people are already behind in terms of awareness of what AI can do, let alone how to actually, use it effectively. Is that the problem here? Is it education? Is it awareness? Is it take up that's holding AI back to a degree? I know we've got trailblazers out there who are spending a lot of money developing these and pushing forward the frontiers, but the sort of businesses that I work with, that you maybe work with as well, they're not in that position. They're doing their day job.
Yeah, I don't think humans are holding AI back. I think humans are holding themselves back. If you look at in the UK, the last budget, the budget before, when the government they basically put a bigger tax on employing people, national insurance, etc., went up significantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said at the time, having already at that point been deep into AI, this is just a tax. This is just going to encourage more businesses to employ less people and use AI more. When the data plays out on that point, so businesses will adapt. They'll just say, if humans don't want to work with these tools, we'll just keep the humans that do. And it sounds pretty brutal, but I'm
Sure.
used to that reality. I'm
Yeah.
used to working in a context in elite sport where you get sacked readily if you do
Yeah.
not perform.
Yeah.
Especially on the staff. Look at what's an average Premier League manager's lifespan at Tottenham Hotspur. It's not very long, is it? But so, yeah, I'm not sure if humans are holding AI back. I think they may be holding themselves back because I know you say you interview some people from the States, the US, and about our customer base is about 50% US, 50% UK. US is way ahead of us on the AI conversation. That's where I have my best conversations about AI, apart from with you, Cal. But, if you look at the government level, they've gone for it, right? That's all the major stakeholders are there. They're building out the infrastructure there. They have the cheap energy costs there to actually fuel it, etc. So, yeah, I just think if you're not taking this seriously, you're actually holding yourself back. And like, you said, I'm glad you didn't ask me to answer that question. What about young people? I mean, I've got a few thoughts on that, but I don't think anyone's solved that problem yet. We won most career paths as they currently exist in the white collar world won't exist like they used to exist. It just doesn't make any sense that they would exist in that way. I would say most university degrees. Well, one thing that was a bit of a wow moment for me just last week is I'm always looking at the data that's coming out around AI. I think the webinar you came to, you saw me present quite a lot of data about what's going on. One of the things I just saw last week was that in the sort of bar chart of sectors, professions that are most vulnerable to AI, or the highest on the bar chart, the highest percentile is office-based administration work. The next is solicitors. It's almost equal. No one expects that. You went to do a law degree, you picked at university, that's going to be a steady profession. Well, already that sector's been massively disrupted. And, in the private sector, if there's a cheaper, better solution, people will flock to it. So I think we're going to see, again, the AI will break through because it's so powerful. It will be humans that I think get left behind and get disrupted. But the flip side of that is the opportunity is immense.
Yeah.
We're now seeing businesses. We're seeing more $1 million one-person businesses than ever before. We're seeing businesses that have been around for 12 months generating, 20 million reoccurring revenue. We're working towards the first 3-person unicorn $1 billion startup. It's real, but the tech's there. Anyone can use it. This is the thing that boggles my mind. It's here. Anyone can use the technology. It's not many things that used to be a barrier and not a barrier anymore.
Found that
Yeah.
myself just, over the last year, getting familiar with AI. There's obviously different ways of looking at your mindset, but one of the most notable things about getting used to working with AI was you have to release your brain. You have to just let go of your preconceptions about what you are capable of doing, what you know about, what you don't know about, and just let AI help you learn in a very coordinated and targeted sort of way. It's there as your assistant, not quite the personal assistant that you're creating yourselves, but it's there as a colleague, somebody to bounce off, a muse, somebody who is just there to really help you on a day-to-day basis. And before that, before when I was first starting AI, I was constrained by my thinking about, no, that's not really possible. I can't really do that. I don't know enough about that. But suddenly you start thinking in a different way, and you start then suddenly, I don't know, it's sort of mind expanding when you get that realization.
Yeah, I'd say its greatest strength, I mean, they're all technically agents, but I separate them by thinking of agentic AI, the stuff that fully automates things, although it's all technically agentic AI, and generative AI like Claude and ChatGPTs that you co-work with. When you're co-working with the generative AI, the LLMs, it literally is, I would say its greatest strength is a personal learning companion. It accelerates your learning and also kind of guides you. Everyone has that experience of trying to Google something, try to find the information, and then people will say, oh, it's just a fancy search engine. Well, actually, it doesn't just give you information, it shows you step by step how to do things, and it's starting to do it for you now.
Yeah.
So it's literally like hiring an accountant or a tech person. That's where the tech is at right now. And certainly some of the models we use just in the last month, the improvements have been unbelievable. I mean, these are just, they're phenomenal they are phenomenal technologies, and just got to start using them, but not in a serious way, not as a search engine. Pick a project, something you're working on, start using it in a serious way.
Yeah. And I think even if you're not using it at work yet, start using it in your personal life. It really does start to teach you, and it's enjoyable. It does train you. It does teach you how to use AI to its advantage. I mean, we probably need to be quite clear that you can't replace an accountant with AI just speaking to Chat GPT. But it does remind me, actually. I mean, I think I gave a talk at an event probably 10 years ago now, and it was about the use of technology in the sector that I was working, which is the environmental sector. But there were solicitors there, and I had done some research on AI at the time, and even then, Canada was at the forefront of using AI as it was back then in a law sort of environment. And I did turn around to the solicitor at the event there and said, "Look, here's the graph. AI will replace you at some point." And he looked at me very quizzically. But it's come home now. This is where we're at. 10 years has suddenly disappeared, and this is reality.
Yeah, and I think just to go back to, you said AI won't replace an accountant. Well, let's think about, we've got to be very careful with language. Let's throw out the idea of an accountant. Forget an accountant exists. All there is a set of tasks that you need to execute to get your account submitted legally and lawfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all there is, a set of
Yeah.
tasks. Now, previously, we would have outsourced most of those tasks to the accountant. We don't need to anymore. We can split them up. We can give some of them to AI. I mean, AI's ability to deal with spreadsheets is unbelievable. You can literally do in seconds what would take a human a day to do. KPMG got a 40% discount from their auditors this year because they said you should be able to do it cheap with AI, right? So traditional roles are being disrupted. It's more about tasks. What tasks do we need to get executed to delight our customers? And that's not just going to be delivering our current product. It's going to be innovating our product so they get better and better and better. So AI might not be able to execute some of the tasks that the solicitor would have traditionally executed, but it can do most of them, I'd say. And again, the same with law, because again, law is a great example of static expertise because the law's the law, right? Obviously, case law evolves, but not at a massively quick rate. So that's why it's such a disruptable sector, because what is known is known. It just takes an individual an awful long time to learn it. So, but it won't be that it replaces all solicitors. It'll be smaller teams of solicitors who are probably the leading experts, who instead of hiring a big team, they'll hire a smaller team, and that team will be working with AI. And someone might think, well, that's the way I want to work and that'll be nice and comfortable. But someone will come along, and they're doing this now there's a tool called Harvey AI, that it just commoditizes the service. So something that used to be highly defendable and specialized is just getting commoditized. So I think AI, can commoditize many businesses much faster than we've ever seen before. Businesses that used to be highly defendable because of what you knew are just not anymore. And the money that's been thrown behind this, I think Claude's last round was, for me, maybe I'm naive, but I used to think, 100 million in a raise, that's big, or 400 million. Claude's last raise was 30 billion last month. 30 billion they raised.
Telephone numbers, isn't it? Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Look, it's fantastic to talk to you, John. I've found it really fascinating, the speed that AI is evolving. But I ask all my guests this, and there's no shame in sort of suggesting your own book here. But I ask every guest to recommend a book that maybe they think everybody should read once in their lifetime, or just even in the current situation we're in today. What have you got something that you can recommend to us?
Yeah, well, I would say, because it's what we've spoken about, is train your brain for the AI revolution, because that is designed to take you on this journey, and it's about understanding your brain state first, and then understanding how you can gently start to build AI into your workflows, not just individually, how you can start to scale that across a team and an organization. And then and then we have the Habit Mechanic, which is their sister books. They're on Amazon. They're part of the same series. And then soon we're going to have our Habit Mechanic AI available, which is we're really excited about. Is putting the system into your hands every single day, so you don't just have to read. It's not just reading the book; it's doing it. It's working on yourself. And getting good at managing your brain is going to be more important than ever before. And if you can get good at that, the world literally is your oyster. We're going to see, I think, greater levels of wealth generated in the next 10 years than we have possibly ever seen before. And anyone can be part of that if they want to. Equally, we're going to see possibly, as big a economic disruption in a negative way than we've possibly seen before as well. So there'll be some massive winners and some massive losers. If you want to get on the right side of that, brain state intelligence is the key. And I would also say if you've got, children or young adults, that's also the key thing they need to understand. We've worked in schools for over 15 years now, as well as, corporate work and elite sport. And when you understand how your brain works through the brain state lens, you can learn and adapt to any situation. We've seen that time and time again. So this is the key. We can't predict what our young people will be doing in 3 years and 5 years, but if they're brain state intelligent, they're going to be able to deal with and capitalize on any situation that they're presented with. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. Train your brain for the AI revolution.
Yeah, and I encourage our audience as well to check out Jon's The Habit Mechanic and Tougher Minds YouTube channel as well, further insights into this. Jon, it's been a pleasure to have you on as a guest on the podcast. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you to everyone for listening. It's been a pleasure.
That's great. So if you've enjoyed this, please follow us on LinkedIn for practical AI tips and updates on future episodes of Aligned on AI. I will share details of today's podcast and guest on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So please do give me a follow on LinkedIn for more content like this. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.